Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Well, we appreciate you being here today and making the decision to join us and potentially move your life forward and change it. Now, I highlighted the word decision because many times we have challenges making decisions. And a lot of times that goes back to your childhood. How is that connected? We're going to talk about that today. And also, those challenging decisions you almost can't make. You have trouble making, but you know it's the right decision and you know it'll bring you peace and maybe closer to your dreams. It's all about decisions today. She has made a decision to join us, and I'm grateful for that. She helps people wrestle with this all the time, coaching them, walking that journey with them. And that's because we're all beautifully broken. And that's the name of her practice. Dawn Manderfeld is back with us. How you doing today?
I am good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, very well. Very excited to talk about this. And I really mean that because most people don't realize it, but this is major in terms of decisions. We always have to make decisions, whether it's pizza or Chinese for dinner, or a life changing decision with a job or a relationship. And we're challenged by that. But in making those decisions, it really, most of them, it really does go back to our childhood, those challenges, right?
It does.
Hmm.
I know that I always told my kids, if you didn't like something I did when you're 18 and you are on your own, you can change it. But there are a lot of things that have affected my decision making and have helped me or not so much helped me by the way I was raised. And I think sometimes it has where you are in the chronological order too.
Explain that
Um,
because I subscribe to
well,
all of this, but that one I'm not really sure what that is.
the oldest child gets treated, the oldest, the
Oh,
second, the third, kind of where you are. Are you the only child? Are you the second out of many? Are there three of you and you're in the middle? Are you the youngest?
all right, I got one for you.
Um,
I got one for you.
okay, go for it.
I'm a twin.
Okay.
But technically I'm the oldest because I'm by 15 minutes. So I don't know how that.
I have twins too.
You have
I
twins?
I have twins. I have a boy and a girl that are twins, and they're an hour and 10 minutes apart.
Oh my gosh, I'm a fraternal as well.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
hmm. Well, let's be honest. Parents do treat their kids differently. I was just having a conversation with somebody, and she says when she goes to work, they, once a week, every couple of weeks, whatever, they'll have a conversation about kids, and it'll be like the favorite of the week. Let's say you have two kids, kid, A, you might be saying, yeah, she's really a peach this week. The other one, "Oh, what a pain in the, and then,
Hmm.
a week will go by. Oh, that one. Yeah. Yeah. She said, no, 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 no. My older one, man, now she's awesome this week. They actually compare notes, but let's be honest, as parents, that does change. It varies. You have
It does.
favorites from time to time. Um, I
Yeah.
look back and I'll compare notes with my sister, and she may say, Mom favored you at this point. I'm like, I didn't even feel that. I didn't realize that, but maybe that's what she's feeling. Um, how does that chronologically, that order, affect your decision making?
I think when you're the oldest, you're the practice child. And so when parents have their first child and they're kind of learning what it's like to be a parent and trying to set forth rules and how they want to discipline, how what they want to teach their child,
Hmm.
which direction they want their child to go. I think that is very different for the first child. And I think things change when the second comes along. And then when the third and the fourth come along, I've seen this in so many families where they can be pretty solid in what their rules and everything are. But depending on where the child is in order, it can definitely show
Hmm.
where they've just kind of like, but is if you were in a happy home, that can be huge as you're going through school and growing up and, graduating, making adult decisions. If you were in a home where there's lots of fighting, then a lot of times you put up a barrier or some type of mechanism to try to cope with that. So then when you find your friend group that you trust, a lot of times they're totally different than that. Like they can bring you peace and you learn a different sense of peace. Um, Once you're an adult and you can change some, of the way things happened. Now
Mm,
you can make your decisions and you can change it. Are you going to live the same way that you were raised? Are you going to change some things you didn't like or you didn't think were probably the best way to do things? Are you going to try to change that?
mm,
I mean, it can affect our decision making for where we want to work, who we're going to marry, if we're ever going to get married. Do we want children? Do we not want children? How we were raised really does affect a lot of our decision making. Whether you were in a happy home, not a happy home, maybe you were in foster care, maybe, you lived with other family members. I mean, this is something that we could go in so many different ways in, but no matter how we try to not make our childhood decipher some of the directions we go in, they are going to affect us.
well, before anything happens or changes, doesn't it start with awareness,
Yeah.
realizing your childhood? Because I could talk to somebody and they could say, "Oh, my childhood was great." But I'll bet you if you, and I'm not being negative here, just reality. If you thought deep about it, you might identify a few little things there, and they could be major, they could be medium, they could be large. But it is affecting you and your decision making process.
Yes. Yep,
Hmm.
it is. And for some people, it's easy when they turn 18. Like I told my kids, if there's something you didn't like, now you have a chance to change it. But just remember where all of the solid raising came from,
Hmm.
and believe me, some really did change how they decide to do their adulthood. But I'm seeing in some of my children, now that they're married and they're going on to the next level of their life, they're
Hmm.
really kind of raising children the same way they were raised, using the same rules, expecting them to follow the rules,
Mm-hmm.
having certain, disciplines. And it's been making me giggle kind of a lot lately. I mean, my one son who's a twin is now guardians of two young girls. So not only did he just get married last year, but as soon as they got married, they took in a 12 and a 14-year-old.
Well.
I get a lot of phone calls and I get a lot of, Mom, how did you do this?
Mm,
But for me, my kids lived with me my whole life. When you're doing something like that, you're taking on another whole new mess, really, of what those girls went through.
yeah.
So yeah,
Wow.
it makes me giggle when I get certain phone calls and I'm like, well, son, do you remember when you were this age and this is what you did and this is what I took away from you? And he goes, yeah, yeah, I remember it. I didn't like it. And I said, yep, so don't expect them to like it.
Mm, wow. Yeah. Great point you bring up because now he's got his childhood and looking at it through that lens, and then now he's got the two girls that he and his wife are caring for, and they've already been at that age, um,
Seen and
con-
been through way more than they should have.
conditioned,
Yep.
in a certain way. So now you got to take the blend between his childhood and their childhood and kind of make it all work, as best you can. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah,
Um,
he's like, now I understand, Mom. Now I understand. And I'm like, yeah, well, all you
mm,
can do is the best you can do. But always explain to them why you're giving them that discipline. Always explain to them why. And then when you get done, always let them know that you still love them and that's the reason why you want them to understand what boundaries are, understand what the rules are, because you will have to follow them your whole life, you know?
Yeah. And we're not throwing any parents under the bus. Every
No,
parent does the best they can with what they have. And what do they
exactly.
have? It's what was instilled by their parents.
Yeah, I
Unless,
was just gonna say it's a cycle.
yeah.
In certain things you can break and change, but certain things are always going to follow through. They just are.
Or you make adjustments in the way you operate based on whether you align with your parents and the way they raised you. And I look just like your son said to you, I look at my mom, single mom from when I was an infant, and I look like, how the heck did she do that? How did she never remarried, two kids, same age, got a house, like worked her butt off. I don't know how she did that. And then when went 17, she would leave work, drive me to my first radio job, drop me off. I would work there in the afternoon till sunset because we went off the air. It was an AM station, my first one. So that time varied. So now anywhere from I don't know 7 until 9 o'clock, she'd get back in the car, and it was about a 15-minute drive. Pick me up, go home. I go to school. She goes to work. I'm like, how'd you do that? Like all of that. But I know one thing: I'm there for my kids. Like when I don't want to say I jump, but it's like I got you. I'm there. If it makes sense, of course. Um, And then I'm going to be honest, on the flip side, my dad didn't really know him that well. Um, I made a decision when I was 18. I'm like, yeah, we'll hang every once in a while, but I got a job. I got a girlfriend. I'm doing my thing. Don't really need you. You see him every once in a while. And then he passed when I was 21 suddenly. And kind of a regret for me, as I look
Yeah.
back. Should have spent that time. But I take away the things that he instilled in me. And now, at this point in my life, I realize I'm him in a lot of regards. Not maybe the parenting thing, but I don't even know the full story. That's the other part of it. Um, but when you take that time, it's an eye opener when you
So
look at
did
your
that
childhood.
did that affect the decision that you made as an adult of what direction you want to go in?
Um, yes, in terms of my kids, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it how I felt it was right, and my parents
Mhm.
couldn't because of their dynamics. Is what it
Yep.
is, and that's I I I understand it. I respect what went down there. But I always said I want to try and do it better. Been divorced myself, I I still try to make, do the best thing by my kids. Yeah, as you do too, and
Oh
teach those
yeah.
lessons.
Yeah, I did that too. I was a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah. And then yeah, that's another whole thing. But yeah, you really you do the best you can. And it made my heart happy for him to say, now I know, Mom, what you sacrificed for us and why you had to work so many jobs.
Yeah.
I get it now. But, thank you for the time you did spend with us, because I did try to have quality time with them. And so, yeah, how your childhood does affect how you do things. But my adult life is totally different than my siblings,
Same.
like totally different. And I didn't choose the path. It's just the way it happened. But I could only make a choice on how I handled it.
And we talked about that before. We all have a
Yeah,
choice. You do have a choice.
yeah. And I
Life
have
may
regrets, but I can't go back and change them.
right,
All I
right.
can do now is just say I'm sorry and I tried and hope that they don't go through the same stuff.
Now everything we're talking about here that goes back to your childhood, is it really your subconscious? Is everything, that we're most of what we're referring to, it's already been programmed in us and we pilot on that.
Um, I wouldn't say always no, because I think there are a lot of things from our childhood that we don't even remember.
Mm,
And I know I have friends that had a horrible childhood and they've literally blocked things out. And so, in your subconscious, they're always there and you're aware of them. But I do know some people who really had some pretty horrible stuff going on in their childhood, and they literally have blocked them out not to remember.
Hmm. Um,
And I
which
think
is
now that
normal.
they're older and they have children, though, I think I've noticed certain things are triggering a memory. And then they're like, did that really happen? Like, did that really be allowed to happen to me? And it's like, well, put your childhood together and, see, because now she can't ask those questions, you know. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, it's very, very interesting.
It is. It is. Once you start, I call it connecting the dots. You got to start figuring it out. How can you identify what could be connecting to your childhood in your decision making? Is it coaching? Is it therapy? Is it hypnosis? How can you make that connection to kind of figure out why I do what I do?
I think if we just sit down and even, talk to siblings, talk to your parents if they're still around, and, just say, this keeps coming to my mind. Did this really happen? Or, why did this happen? Or, was this really something that we weren't allowed to do, or did I just dream it? A lot of times you need to start talking about it and just, and just trying to figure out if that actually is something that happened to you or someone that you knew or one of your other siblings if you have a sibling. But a lot of times it's just there again, communication is how we're going to get an answer to a lot of those.
Now,
Because you
let's
can't just assume.
there's probably more going on. You could say, well, my mom was overprotective, and that's why I didn't have a chance to do this and do that and da da la la. And maybe you are as a parent, but it's not. There's a lot. I feel there's a lot more going on. I totally agree with you. There's things that we block out, and I'm not saying traumatic, like oh my
Yep.
gosh, kind of
Oh yeah,
things.
yep,
It could be the littlest thing. You could have gotten, I don't know, hypothetical. You got a bad sunburn when you're 4 years old, and now you have an aversion to going. I don't like the beach. I don't go to the beach. I don't do that. Maybe the
yep.
pool. There's some people that say, I'm where I live. I'm surrounded by water, so on Long Island, and I have friends that say, I don't do the beach. I'm like, how do you not do the beach? It's beautiful. What?
Yeah.
But there may be a reason for that. So let's go over to we're talking about decision making today. Making decisions that you are difficult that will bring you peace. You know it's the right answer. And we've kind of talked about intuition before. And then you still can't do it. You're afraid to, jump off and make that decision or go in that direction. Uh, why is that happening? And how can you change that?
Um, Making a difficult decision that you know will break your heart and bring you peace is a whole new level of understanding yourself. And
Mm,
when you know that there's a decision coming up and maybe everything about that decision looks good. Maybe, that friendship looks good and it's fulfilling something for you at the time. That's when you literally need to again write something down, put down the pros and cons, and just really walk away from the situation and really, really think about why am I here? Why am I with this person? Why do I hang out with these people? How do I feel afterwards?
mm,
How do I feel while I'm with them? How do I feel um, at this job? And will this new job that was given to me as an opportunity, what void is that going to fill? And do I have a peace? Like when let's just say it is a job and you're walking through a place. Do you feel peace while you're there?
mm,
When you look at the other people, do they look like they're enjoying their job? You know, is that much of a raise worth not being happy and really struggling and being so stressed that you literally can't stand your job. Is the money really worth that? How is it going to affect your personal life? How is it going to affect your family? That's one way to really make a decision that's like, wow, this is my dream job. But when you walk in there, you can feel the tension in that place. Do I really want to walk into that every day? Or do I want to stay where I am and keep moving forward, keep putting my name out there, keep looking somewhere else? Now, what if it's with a relationship? Let's say um, your relationship is acts of service. So let's say this person does everything right with acts of service, but then he belittles you when you're around friends, or he doesn't want to introduce you to family, or it's always his decision where you're going to go out to eat, what you're going to do for a fun day. Okay, what outweighs what? Like, did you just come from that and that's what you're used to? Or are you willing to break that cycle and keep putting yourself out there until someone fills more than just one of those areas? Do you understand where I'm going with this?
Hmm.
It's like, then don't stay with that person just because he does acts of kindness, because there's a whole lot more to a relationship than someone who's good at acts of kindness.
And do you want acts of kindness?
Yeah, yep, and so it I believe almost every week, if not more, people are consciously and subconsciously making decisions that literally make them sad, but
Mm.
they know in the long run, okay, I've learned if I do this, I'm going to have peace with this. And right now, peace is what I need. I need to have peace in my life. I need to have peace in my mind. I need peace for my body. And I think sometimes decisions become easier for us, but when we are really in a major change in life, or we are really unsatisfied where we are, that's when making a decision that breaks our heart and brings us peace is the most difficult to do. But it could be the most important decision that you make. That's why you need to back off and you literally need to think about it and start writing things down. What do you love about this? What don't you love? I mean, that can make a very huge difference. There again, you're visually seeing it. Or talk to yourself. Say, "Hey, I really love this, but I really don't like this. So what what makes my body more stressed? Is it this or is it this? Like what can I handle? What can't I handle?" And it's okay to do that. But then we need to change ourselves too sometimes. When we're making those decisions, we need to think of where our part is in that too.
And there's faith and fear. You have to consider those, have faith that it's going to be okay when you make that decision, and don't fear it. This is why you're great at what you do, because in what you just said, I just saw my life in the last 15 years flash before my eyes and identify certain things. I, 14 years ago, uh, took a promotion, and I'm thinking right now, dude, you knew it wasn't for enough money. Why'd you do that? It brought me stress, an ulcer, probably took years off my life. Sounded like a pretty good career move, really wasn't. It wasn't worth the pay. And I'm thinking right now, yeah, I knew it wasn't enough money, but I'm like, well, I just do it. It's good for my family. I think we need to look at our lives and say, what's in it for me? I know that sounds a little self serving, but what's in it for me? What's in it for you? Why are you doing that? Where's your benefit? Where's your win? Where's the gain? And certainly with in a relationship, looking at, back to the elementary love language, acts of service, that if that person is doing those for you, do you really want that? Are you, what's in it for you? Because I don't need acts of service. Doesn't work for me. I don't know. Great. I appreciate it. I appreciate everything, but I don't need that. It's words of affirmation and physical touch. That's me. Ding, done. Took a
Okay,
long time.
but now what if you're with somebody who does those, but yet when you're out in public belittles you or puts you down? or, you know,
Hmm.
does that in expectation of getting something in return all the time.
Well, there's the good and the bad, and I call it the scale of life. All
So
right.
there again, you
Yeah.
literally have to figure out what's going to work for you finally. Like, what have you learned from the past?
Hmm.
And are you willing to make a difficult decision that's going to break your heart for a moment?
Yep.
But in the long run, it's going to bring you peace, and it's going to be the right way to go.
And you know the answer. You just don't want to admit it. I do it all the
Yeah.
time. I know the answer. I already got it. Um, and I knew the answer back then when I took that job. Um,
Isn't
and
that
as
interesting though? Yeah, you knew, but it was just like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. So let's just see where it goes.
kind of makes sense, didn't fully make sense,
Yep,
didn't
kind of.
fully. And I can transport my mind right to that moment where this is what we're going to pay you. And I'm like, oh, all right. That's not what they pay. Why did I do that? I I did it for my family. I did it a little bit of a career move, but really in the end, I knew in a month this is really not worth it. Um, but I think we need to realize, why is it why we make those decisions, and again, I have to say, what's in it for you? Like, what is it? Yes, you're doing it for your family, but you're going to be a better person if you're happy and you're not stressed
Well,
out
the
and you don't
whole
have an
thing
ulcer.
is learn from your mistakes and grow forward.
Oh, for sure.
You
Yep.
know, a lot of people, they don't learn even from their mistakes. They just keep doing the same thing because they think, well, I mean, if you're not doing something different, then it's not going to change, you know?
Hmm. Or it'll get better. Yeah,
Yeah.
this time will be better. Probably not. And again, you know the answer. Um, you have that way of just talking. I swear, I'm like, I just saw 15 years in front of me, and why I did certain things and why I do certain things. Um, that's why you're a professional of the year. I mean, I get it. It's really cool. Um, that's never happened before, by the way. How do we find you? What's the best way, Dawn, if somebody wants to connect, if they're seeing connections here in terms of what we're talking about?
My website is livingbb.org. My email is donrenee@livingbb.org, and my phone number is 952-200-1103.
Thank you for sharing everything today, your transparency and insight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a blessed weekend.
You too. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.